Channels Television, ubiquitous.
Welcome back to Rubbing Minds.
He needs to have his cabinets in place. So we need to understand that principle first. So
it's interesting you say that because we have about 26 days left, according to the Constitution, for the president to name his cabinet members.
Yes.
And the attendant effect of not naming his cabinet members up until now is affecting other states. Like in the state of Lagos, we're yet to see commissioners. So what body language is the president saying by waiting before naming his cabinet members?
So it's quite interesting because one of the information that is currently out there now is that he's done. He's named all these ministers, but it now needs to be made public, right? I'm sure by the time all of these ministers have been placed into their portfolio, now the palliatives like Nigerians are clamoring about can now be disbursed, managed by different ministries or MDAs who will now ensure that this palliative meets the right people, basically. So that is how government structure works. But when it comes to the increase in remuneration...
The planned increase
in remuneration of government officials, I think now is not the right time. Because at 114% increase, it's a far cry. We can't do that to Nigerians because as much as possible, a lot of Nigerians are literally having to fend for themselves for everything, right? For example, according to the healthcare coverage, out-of-pocket expenditure push more people into below the poverty line. So we need to, even if people must pay for medical care, do we have health insurance scheme that Nigerians can leverage to reduce that effect? Because now people don't really have enough money. So if there is removal of fuel subsidy, they floated the naira, a lot of things has happened. Inflation has gone up. So paying for things from my pocket becomes more of a problem.
Do you think that the cost of governance is high as it is? And if yes, why?
So first off, the cost of government currently in Nigeria is pretty much high. For a third world country, I argue from a place of a citizen, for example, for a third world country, you cannot run the kind of system of government we currently do. For example, in the legislature, we operate a bicameral system of parliament, right? Now, what it means is that at the legislature, you have an upper chamber, you have a lower chamber. Then at state level, you have the State House of Assemblies. If you look at it really, there's really no difference. What they do, according to them, the excuse is to check and balance the power sharing and all of that. But when it trickles down to the development of Nigeria, you will not really see the effectiveness of what these guys do. Else, all we do is we see money sharing, administrative fees, increase in salaries, but we do not see the effect that they actually do. We cannot operate that kind of system of government.
Do you think having our public office holders work part-time is a way forward? So if we're not seeing the work that they're doing and we're paying so much more, perhaps if we give them time to earn a living, then we don't have to pay so much for them actually doing what they're supposed to do.
So public officers working part-time is not the solution, right? What I usually say is that when you look at first world countries, what are they doing differently? So as a public officer, what do you bring to the table? It's not about showing up in the office and sitting and doing pass one paper here and there and that's it. No. Now, in other development countries, they have what we call a sovereign wealth fund. That sovereign wealth fund is usually like an investment corporation of that society, right? So they invest using public funds, invest in different instruments that remunerate revenue to that government, which they now use to disseminate and build the economy. We do not practice that here. The sovereign wealth fund we have they don't really have enough portfolio that regenerates revenues for Nigerians. So working part-time will not really be the solution. They rather invest more in a recurring revenue generation that takes care of some of these recurring expenditures.
And some will say that when you look at some of the functions of the ministries, the agencies, there's a bit of an overlap. So are we looking to see maybe some merging occurring between some of these MDAs, or maybe actually having some of them made obsolete to reduce the cost of governance?
So in that system is called government restructuring, right? Now, it's not only about Nigeria. All across the world, governments are restructuring. In the UAE, for example, they are restructuring. They cut down the entire system of government, you know, all the MDAs, they reduced them, some were merged. In Nigeria, same should happen. And I am glad that the Zamfara state government currently has done that by reducing the MDAs, the ministries, from 28 to 16. That is laudable. And I believe that other states should learn from that approach.
So the reduction will help in managing the cost of governance.
It will.
Now, in terms of the body language of the president, what do you get from him in not yet naming his ministers? And how is he managing the effect of that? Because Nigerians have had to use over a month now to adapt to the fuel prices, over a month now adapting to some of the effects of that. So we've seen an increase in food, for example.
The body language of the president. So I usually tell folks out there that being a president, the burden, it's super high, right? And in a fragile state like Nigeria, there are a lot of capturing you have to do in naming some of your ministers, right? Different regions have different, you know, sentiment as to how many ministers should be accrued to them, or regardless of whatever it is. But we have to give him time. I usually say this, and this I'm speaking from an objective point of view, from a citizen's point of view, because according to the Greek mythology, it said there are three kind of people in the society, right? There are those who are self-serving, there are those who are tribesmen, and there are those who are citizens. A tribesman is only concerned about his people, right? His people can be my co-worker, my fellow church member, or somebody from my tribe or ethnicity. The self-serving is him, myself, and I. And also, when you talk about the citizens are people who are concerned about the holistic well-being of the nation. To do this effectively, you need to have and see things from a perspective that is inclusive. Okay, what could be the problem? We have the issue of quota systems, right? So they are factoring all of this into creation.
He has to balance the political aspects as well as the requirements of the office.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Jude, for your contributions on Rubbing Minds.
Thank you.
On that note, we bring this program to an end. My name is Isabella Adediji. Join us on Rubbing Minds next week. Good afternoon.
Channels Television, ubiquitous.